So this is just another run through the garden, show you where I'm at the moment, have a little natter about where things are at as well, and how it's doing. Now the one thing I'm going to start with is, firstly, I'm up in the UK, I'm in the UK in the sort of middle half of England, as you look at it. So if you look at a map of England and look to the right hand side, I'm halfway up there. That's where we are. And I mention that because people have asked where I actually am, and I do mention it all the time during the videos, and I will check what I've written to say whether I'm in the UK or not, because I know I get a lot of people watching from other countries, so it's probably confusing. And what else was I going to say? I was going to mention something else. It'll come to me later. So, oh yeah, the other thing I was going to mention is if you're asking questions, I do apologise, but I didn't realise a lot of the questions you're firing at me were going into a different section of YouTube that I've set up, and I didn't realise that's where they popped all the questions. So I am slowly getting back to them and answering the questions as and when I can. So I'm in the Pergola. Excuse me. I'm in the Pergola cloister at the minute. And I call it the Pergola cloister because I've got kind of these bits and bobs in it, which are very churchified. And I was given those from a good friend of mine. And it's really a wooden structure that I spent quite some time doing. I really enjoyed making this because it's been kind of metamorphosizing, really. And it's pretty much the way I do things. So at the moment, the intention of this was for us to sit in here, be secluded, and have plants growing all over. Now, at the moment, the biggest of the plants, which was the first one in, is this. And this is Rosa Gertrude Jekyll. And if you were stood right where I am at the moment, you would be you'd be filled with scent from this, and it has this lovely scent. Now, I've never seen this quite so floriferous. And it would appear that this year is a good year for gardening, because lots of stuff in my gardens is doing really well. And the downside of having roses is they do get damaged. The wind does damage them, and when the flower simply becomes too heavy for the plant, it will snap. Oh, it still smells lovely. So I really like this one. In fact, I'm toying with actually adding another Gertrude Jekyll. I know it seems a bit daft, but it wouldn't hurt to put another one in somewhere. Now there's this one here, and although I do know the name, which is Starlight Symphony, I've been looking at pictures and I'm not really convinced that this is Starlight Symphony. Seems a little bit big. It does have some of the features, but I wonder if it's just because this year it's done so well. It's looking really healthy. And looking at it, I don't think it suffers from disease at all. It's doing really well, that one. So in the cloister pergola, it's not the only thing I've got. I've got other bits and bobs. This is a bit of what we call a sheep ring feeder, and and I've explained this many times, but we'll go for it again. And you put a bale in there, and then sheep would pop their head through those little bars and eat the bale. And it's to stop them being a little bit greedy, really, and pigs as well, I do believe. Now, somebody's been round to my garden, and I've said this before. I won't mention who it is because I do know who it is, or I think I know who it is. And they've been spreading teasels. Now it's there's a lady called Miss Wilmot who used to do this very thing in gardens, but she used to spread eryngiums, which were acceptable. This one isn't. This is not acceptable. This is a teasel. And they become massive, and they will spread everywhere, and I'm finding them all over, and I'm sure she mentioned that she'd been sprinkling a gift around my garden. She could have sprinkled something a lot better than that, because they will cause me problems. So every time I find one, I'll leave a couple of them, but the rest will go. Look at that, it's an absolute beautiful rose, this one. But it does suffer a little bit of rust, a little bit of black spot rather. Got a black spot there, but I don't worry too much about that. If you really don't like diseases in roses, you really need to select the better ones, the disease-resistant ones. This is a euphorbia. And I love this euphorbia. I've got several types of euphorbia like this now. I seem to collect them, and they're kind of upright. They're not the usual. They're not the usual types of euphorbia. I would call them. In fact, I may start calling them walking stick euphobias because that's pretty much what they are. I think that'd be a good name. That's Euphorbia excalibur, and it's a beauty. And it still maintains some of its colouring on the leaves, but not as good as when it first comes up. Now there's another rose here, and this is Woollerton Old Hall, and it's new to me this year, so I'm really looking forward to this one opening because it's also got a scent. And I noticed behind it we've got some nettles. I try not to worry too much about weeds. There are a few weeds around this garden. I will get on top of them, and I'll do it bit by bit. Now, back in the day, I would go around my gardens and I would be obsessed by removing weeds. But nowadays, I'll leave them a little bit longer, and then I will walk around one day, pick them out. Got Brunera, that's looking good. We'll pill this weed. Talking of it, seems I'm right next to it. Ah, oh, bugger. No, the root's still in there, so that's going to come back up. Right, okay, so as I said, this is a cloister pergola, and this is what I call the polo. This window, this was a reclaimed window from a 70s house, and I love this. And I still haven't cleaned it. I'm a bit idle, really. I ain't got round to it, and the path still isn't in. It will go in, I promise you. That's just another little task that I have to do. Euphorbias are looking great at the minute. The Wolfenii types, anyway. But they're full of flower now. It's time that I started cutting those flowers away, because if I don't, I'm going to end up with euphorbia everywhere. So this section here, I took out a shrub, if you remember, and a Cuba japonica, crotonifolia, where that grass is, because it wasn't doing very well, and we'll show you that in a minute where we've put it now, and it's looking a lot better as a result of moving it. And there's an hole behind there. That was another miscanthus. In fact, I've split the miscanthus. If you look at this miscanthus, and they have an annoying habit of doing this. They become nice grasses, but then parts of them can die away. And the simple method is to just lift that and split it in half, which is what I did with the other one. Now, the other annoying thing that happens to these grasses is, once you get your eye in, and this will be more apparent to you, you'll find ordinary grasses trying to grow within them. Now, I've got a lot of couch grass in this garden, so I find this all the time. So I'm always watching for it, and I pull them as and when I see them. But in general, the cloister pergola is looking really, really nice. Really happy with it. There's another euphorbia there. And it's just Excalibur again, but it's starting to flower now, and it's beautiful. Most people consider this beautiful, and I do too, but I consider that beautiful as well. It's just as much beauty. So in general, I'm quite happy with this. This is a silver birch. This is Jacquemontii type, and you can see that some of the branches are splaying out. I don't worry too much about that at the moment, but we do need to keep our eye on this, because this is going to go up to about, I'd say about 25-30 foot eventually, but it's got plenty of space to do it. Don't be afraid of letting your tree get to its ultimate height, because they can present something really, really nice. And I love birches, but I will have to do some tree work on that. This is Fagus sylvatica Dowick Gold, and I keep saying that I've not seen much colour, much of the Dowick Gold bit, but finally it's starting to produce some. Up at the top there, and these little sections here are producing it. So I suspect as this plant becomes more of a mature specimen, it will get golder and golder. That's going to be beautiful. It will stay in that strict columnar growth pattern, and it might spread out to 6 foot. Who knows? Depends where you are. But it will keep going up in the air, so it's columnar. And while we're here, we'll mention this. This is Crataegus, and it's Pole Scarlet, and it's over now, really. All but over, but it has been stunning. And I'm controlling this because often when you grow a tree, they'll splay in areas you don't want them to. And I want this to actually form me a tunnel at this section over this path. So what I've done, I've tied these sections up. There's 3 of them I've done it on. Tied them up so that we can control the growth. And over time, that branch will set. It will set back and stay in that sort of formation that I'm forming. And over time, we'll take that rubber holding thing back off of it. And that's a rose tie, really, or a plant tie. So, as you know, Calamagrostis is by far my favourite grass of all grasses. And that's because it's sterile, it's upright, it's a bit of a designer's grass, and it's a beauty. And it's finally, I'll say finally, it's not too bad really. It's finally seeding for me, or flowering as I call it. And it's planted en masse here. It looks equally as good on its own, but it's flowering en masse here, or planted en masse rather. And I've planted it with these. These are Allium Summer Drummer, and they do look really nice. So within 2 or 3 weeks, these seed heads will rise about 2 foot above each plant, and they are really nice. And as I say, they're sterile, so you won't need to worry about them. If you want to get into grasses, try this one as a first grass, because it's not hard to keep. It's quite nice. And what I've done is a little bit of a design trick. I'm not a designer. Someone asked if I was a professional designer. I'm not a professional designer. Just have a very big passion for doing it. I've done it for a long time now. And to be quite honest, I have done 1 or 2 designs for people, but I can't consider myself a professional designer. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so what I've done is a design trick. So there's the main clump, and what I do is I try and bring them across here. Well, I have brought them across here, and that's to kind of give a bit of a continuity and a bit of a connection to both sides to make them look cohesive. Now in this as well, I've also planted, I'm trying to figure out how this is one of them. This is not Calamagrostis calforsa, this is Calamagrostis waldenbush. And there's another one further back there, as you can see, back there, that's another one. And they're not exactly, well, they're not the same type at all, but they will look good next to each other, and they do. Now, usually, waldenbush is well ahead of calforsa, but this year they all seem to be coming out at the same time because of the weird weather we've been having. This is Phyllictrum, Ellen. That's looking nice. And then all the other stuff is now coming up. This is all looking good. I've got a little bit of weeding to do, I must admit, but I have got the garden open in another week and a half, so I'm going to have to whiz through the garden and get some of the weeds out. So this border is next to my nursery area. There's a few grasses in here, as you can see. And we all need this type of an area. I wish it was bigger, to be honest, but it isn't. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, this is here. This is Rus glabra lanceolata, and I mention this quite often because I love it. I just love the way it grows. It has this almost flattened appearance. It's just a real nice doer, and it's just like other Rusas. It will sucker, and it has done this year already. I've removed it and potted the other one up, and over time that will send out more suckers, of which I must keep my eye on. But nevertheless, it's very nice. So that's Persicaria alpina, or as I know it, polymorpha, and that's looking absolutely stunning. I do love that. Now we'll go this way. As I say, we're just doing a generalised walk round to see where things are at. The floating deck is looking exceptionally good, and I'm ever so pleased with this. I remember building this in the depths of winter when it was freezing, and I got a little bit of help from my neighbour 2 doors away. He helped me do that, and it looks great. And I said at the time, it's freezing now, freezing cold. It was hail, it was rain, it was everything. But I said in the depths of summer, we're going to really enjoy sitting at this, and so we do. So this area is on the east side of Grassy Bottom, so it gets a lot of morning sun. but it gets a lot of shade as well, hence me planting it up the way I've done it, which is like this. And the hostas are looking great. Bruneras are looking great. The Astrantes are looking great. This is my Muriel's Gift one, and it is a real corker. There's those dark tips, and it's simply a Jill Richardson selection, but it's looking good. Now this is, I don't think I know which geranium this is. It was I'm sure I could easily locate which one it is. It's a very nice one. I like the colour actually. It's quite a nice bluey purple, and it's a tall growing one. I do know that. Massive leaves on it. This is a viola I got this year. I'll try and tell you the name because I have got it. But it's a lovely viola because it has this. I'm looking at it through the camera and it almost appears purple as I'm filming it. But I think when I upload it, hopefully it'll go back to blue. And it's called Viola Cornuta, icy but spicy. Now, how's that for a name? Pale blue with black veining, vigorous and easy to grow, according to the label. And I love violas. In fact, pansies were some of the very first plants that I ever grew when I was a young lad. But they're really, really nice. Wind's picking up a bit. We're expecting lots of heat tomorrow, so I'm quite excited. Now, China Clover rubra is seeding again. I'd very rarely, in fact, I never find any seeds that are set, but it does seed. And I have grown them from seed as a plant, but they're very, very slow. You really are better splitting that one. This is a Miscanthus giganteus type called Jubilaris with the longitudinal stripe that I always mention. And it's a beauty. It's doing really well. It's in its third year now, and this was the very first plant that I actually put in up at Grassy Bottom. The very first one and the very first border I started digging. Can you believe I dug about a foot from the wall and just planted it in there, and then over the last 3 years it's been growing and it's looking excellent. Cirsium behind it, Cirsium rivulari Atropurpureum is it, and it's beauty. It's going a bit duller purple now because it's been out for a couple of weeks, if not 3. But other stuff's looking good. I must say, the Digitalis this year, I think Hamish has found his new scratching post. Now I must say, Digitalis this year, I've never seen the trumpets on them look so big. They're excellent this year, but like I say, everything's doing well this year, especially up here at Grassy Bottom, it's doing really well. And the wildlife area with its dip pools is doing excellent. I'm really happy with this. I couldn't be any happier, to be honest. It's doing its job, and I do like it, and it is bringing wildlife in. Any bit of water in the garden brings wildlife in. That Rheum palmatum tanguticum continues to carry on, and it is sending up new leaves now. I'm pleased about that because, like I say, I've got the garden open to a couple of gardening clubs in the next couple of weeks. In fact, one this month in 2 weeks' time, then the next one the next month. And the ones next month will get to see more of the grasses. So it's looking really, really nice, this area. All the plants are doing well. They're all away. All of them are growing. And this is again, is Calamagrostis calforsta. And that's a single specimen. Put it in as 2 leaves last year. And I said it wouldn't take long, but that's the beauty that they give you. They really give you this statuesque look. And what you should do is put them within your borders. You should dot them around your border. And then what happens is the eye has somewhere to rest, and it makes sense of the garden. Now, the other thing I do a lot of is I do put a lot of features in, as you can see. And that, again, is to make the garden have some sort of sense. If I just had a big, massive border with loads of plants in that I see a lot of people doing, and there's nothing wrong with that either, you kind of can't rest your eye anywhere, and it doesn't make sense. As soon as you put a building like this in it, and this is the shack, and it's got a boardwalk on it, and a decking, and it just makes sense of this border. And as you know, I add lots of reclaim stuff. I find these bits and bobs all over the place. Now, Geranium Johnson's blues are brilliant at the minute. And these are just simple telegraph poles that I've reclaimed again. Left the bits on them that were on them, that were used as gate posts actually. So they're doing really well. So this border is finally starting to look good. The only shame of it is that Johnson's blue does so well, it flowers so prolifically that it will go over within a couple of weeks and I will have to chop it back, and it leaves a bit of a gap at that point. That's why you have to do this sort of companion planting where you get something else should be ready to grow once it's done its bit. And there is lots in here, but some of them are still very immature and won't really do it for me this year. Now this is Amsonia, this is Ernst Pagels, and I said I would show you this again, but it looks terrible now. The colour's beautiful and it has these star-like flowers, but it has a lovely autumn colour as well. So that's the beauty. Well, there we go. Right, this is the grass that I talked about that we're still trialling, and we found, or my friend found this as a big tall grower, and it's a Deschampsia and a Goldschleier seedling, and we're hoping that the seed heads go quite a way up. To be quite honest with you, not sure that's going to happen. So we're going to have to wait. They've got very, very strong stems, so I can imagine they're going to go up a bit high. Well, a lot higher. I know they will go up a lot higher, but we was hoping to get them up to the usual, or the 4 or 5 foot which we saw it at last year when it was found as a seedling at the nursery. Got loads and loads of little bits and bobs growing. This is looking good. This is that Miscanthus Lutaria riparius, and I've contained it in this. I need to keep my eye on it because I need to water this excessively, a bit more than I have been doing. Because if I don't, it's not going to get very tall at all. And I want it to be tall here. It is very tall. It's bigger than most other grasses in the garden at the moment, but not as big as the main clump, which we'll come to in a minute. I'm really happy with this section. It's doing absolutely excellently. Way better than I thought. It's at the east side of the shack. And it just looks really, really nice. Don't think there's anything really we need to show you in this area. There's not a lot that's any different from when I last showed it. The bamboos continue to get taller, which really pleases me. I know in another month's time they should be at least another 2 foot higher than they are now. And that's going to give me that privacy I've been looking for. Don't forget, I only grow clump forming bamboos. So this is the Nook. I'll show you the entrance. Beautiful. I've loved making this, and it's still not finished. Still a bit there, that's not right yet. And then as we open the door to the Nook, we get this lovely look from the ferns, and I really like this. I'm going to definitely add more ferns to it. This is the Anderson Shelter Arbor seat. And as I say, I'm really going to change those seats. I want a wooden one really there, which would look a lot better. So it's all looking really, really nice. So we'll scoot along now because I know I'm going on again because I don't edit, remember. I do hope at some point to be able to include some written names as I mention a plant. I am working on that. I do have the program to do it. I just haven't done it yet. So this is the section that I was working on last week, and it's got Kathy's seat in there. So it's an arbor seating area really, and I've added some lovely plants to it. That Acer is fantastic. I love it. I bought that off of a friend. Not paid him yet. He'll be watching this and cussing me. Pay me. Not paid me yet. But it's a beauty. It's now in. Got the rocks next to it. And they are beautiful. And we will get that seat in. I've still to finish the top of the roof. over time. I've been working on this section, putting more ferns in. That's Metachukia strophiopteris. I've put 2 new ones in that won't really survive this year. It will, and they are starting to look a little bit dodgy. I will continue to water, but I'm not expecting something much from them yet. This is looking, I've always been happy with this, so it's looking really nice at the minute. Always been happy with this border. I don't know why, it's nothing special. It just seems to work. So we'll wander around. Yeah, I've always been really happy with this border. It does look good. It does look nice. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's because I like tall, skinny, upright plants. And there's a lot in this one. It's working well. Meant to mention this bamboo. Look at this bamboo. It's looking absolutely beautiful. Look at the size of those new culms, or canes as they will become. They're known as culms when they first come up, and then they form the typical cane look. What I like about this as well is that it has these lovely red sections, and then as it comes later in the year, as they mature, they have this blue bloom to the canes themselves, so it has a bit of a double whammy of interest, which is quite nice. Yeah, so I'm quite happy now with this border. I've still got a little bit of tidying up to do in the back there. I'm not too worried about that at the moment. Like I say, don't become obsessed with it, because it can trip you up all the time if you do. Now that grass there, that's Malinia, and that's windsowl, and it's doing absolutely excellently at the moment. And it's next to my own skinny mini there, and that's looking, oh, it's looking lovely. I just love this one so much, and I need to get it to the market because it does really well. It's a real good doer. And we've got another Calamagrostis here that not a lot of people will be familiar with. This one, it's called Emadensis, and it produces green, very green seed heads that droop, but it's a beauty. These Niphophys are looking good. Still not sure what they are. We will find out at some point, but I don't know what they are at the moment. This is the gravel garden, and I've typically left tools all over. I've been working here this afternoon or late on. There's not much to report here yet, but it's doing quite well. This border still has to have a little bit more attention, but it is getting there. A bit of time and a bit of maturity. Now this is Cortaderia, and not all pampas grasses are the same. This one's Cortaderia richardii, and it's got some lovely stems about to appear. In fact, you can see all those stems. Beautiful. It's going to send up loads of flowers this year, which really does please me. And we've got Arundodonax. As I said, these are refusing to send out any more leaves, but I'm leaving them just for the interest, really, those stalks, because they're actually not dead. There is still a lot of green life underneath in those ones. Let's have a look. There you can see. So these, they look very small at the minute, which they are. They would prefer more moisture, and it's on a bit of a dry slope here, but it does quite well for it as well. So that's Allium Schoenoprasum, and it's looking really nice. I really do like that now. It's looking very good indeed. This Veronica, which we think is one of Shirley Blue's seedlings, is doing well. That's going over now. Shame really, because that's been looking really good. Asphodeline have been flowering forever and continues to flower, and it will continue till it gets to the top, and then it'll suddenly stop, and then they'll all set seeds and off it'll go. This is looking great this year. This is the best it's ever looked. This is Eryngium agavifolium. I've got one called Eburnium that's not doing so great, so we won't show you that one. But this is a real good doer. And it's good, if you like architectural form, that's the one to go for. But be careful, because as you can see, it's very, very, very spiky. So wear gloves if you're going to grow that one. This section's looking really nice. This is a view I get from back at Grassy Bottom when I'm sat in my art room. This is the very view I get. So that arbour-seated area looks wonderful. It just sets the scene really up there. I like it a lot. And then this is the birch border. I name everything, remember. Everything has some sort of a name. And there's always a reason behind it, as you can expect. There's another solitary Calamagrostis calforster, and that's been in there 2.5, nearly 3 years now, and that's doing really well. Just one single specimen. If I chose to, early on I could have lifted that and taken at least 6, if not 7 or 8 good splits off that, which would have become quite sizable plants now. But I like to let things mature, you know, we need to let things mature. There's another Molinia there. This is one of my favourites called Windspiel. It means wind dance or wind play. So that's really nice. That's the cutting I took of that elder, remember, Black Tower. And here's the parent plant. Look at that, that is just absolutely stunning. And it's setting flower now, but the colour is amazing. Real beauty, that. So I think that's about it. I'll do for this video. Just a quick look through to see what's happening in the borders. And as you can see, lots is happening. It's looking really, really nice. So I think we'll leave it at that. Oh, before we go, actually, you know what I'm like. 1 minute I stop, the next minute I start. So this is Pimpinella Major Rosea, looking good. It's setting seeds now. I want it to flower all over the place because it's a really nice little doer. Very short-lived perennial. But it's, is it a short-lived perennial? I'm sure it is. It's a long time since I had this. I'm sure it is. Doesn't say on the label, but I'm sure it is. Very short-lived. And then behind it, I moaned about this on the last video that it was looking rubbish. It's called Nyphophia Rich Echoes, and it is quite nice. It is a beauty. I was hoping it would send up more flowers, but it potentially still could. So it's looking great. Will I make any changes? Well, one change I will make is this. I used to love lupins. I hate this with a passion. And the other one that I got at the same time, they did look good. The slugs and snails have had it. The colour is pathetic. I don't like it at all. I'm going to remove them. Just going to lift them and remove them because I really don't want them in there now. They're serving no purpose. I kind of like species type stuff, but the species lupin